What is going down, everyone? I would like to, before I get into this video at all, would like to wish all my subscribers, the 49er Empire, anyone associated with the YouTube Trash Talking Circle, or just anybody that watches my videos on YouTube, to have a happy Thanksgiving with you and your family tomorrow. Just an absolute happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there on YouTube. Now, Pigpen, and for those of you that don't know, WnxPigpen has been a Seahawks video maker on here for about the same time that I've made 49er videos. The last 14 years has been here on YouTube. And I am just thrilled that we're able to kind of have a little bit of a hate week after all these years where Niners and Seahawks are still battling it out here on YouTube in the Trash Talking Circle. So that is just awesome. But like you said, who the fuck is going to make a trash talk video the day before the game? So all I'm going to say really is, besides the fact that, of course, the Niners are going to go into Seattle on a short week with Purdy, just like they did last year, and are going to get the dub. Now, division games can be tough sometimes, so I don't necessarily expect it to be a blowout. I expect the Seahawks to be in this game, but I expect the Niners to come away on the road in a short week with a victory. That's what I expect. But Pigpen, you talk about how you have a bitter taste in your mouth from last season when we swept you guys in the regular season and then beat you in the postseason. Well, I'll tell you what I got. I got a bitter taste in my mouth when I think of Thanksgiving and playing the Seattle Seahawks for that 2014 game when you guys beat us with Kaepernick as our quarterback, Jim Harbaugh's last year's as head coach, where Sherman had like, what was it, 3 interceptions against Cap. And after the game, the NBC crew, of course, Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth, handed it off to Michelle Tafoya, who was on the Niners' 50-yard line at Levi's Stadium, the first year of Levi's Stadium, by the way. We got Richard Sherman and Russell Wilson eating turkey on the 50-yard line, eating turkey on the 49ers logo, disrespecting the newly opened Levi's Stadium, which, for those of the Niner fans that hated the whole idea of moving to Santa Clara from San Francisco and all that, that just made it extremely worse, because that just gave a bitter taste in everyone's mouth, and it just, but 9 years later, I would love nothing more than, like I said, I think this will be a close game, but I would love nothing more than to absolutely blow out the Seattle Seahawks and have Brock Purdy and Fred Warner eating turkey on the Seahawks logo. That would be perfect revenge. And hey, speaking of Richard Sherman knows this rivalry more than anyone, of course, too. I hated Richard Sherman a decade ago, and I could not stand Richard Sherman's guts. Even though he did go to Stanford, still, I hated him. But then, fast forward to 2018, he ends up becoming a Niner. Boom, just like that, all is forgiven. I may be more of a forgiving person than some other people. So I know for some other people, the fact that Richard Sherman didn't win a ring and played poorly in the Super Bowl that we were in means that they still got some sports hatred for Richard Sherman. I don't. Richard Sherman was on our side, and that 2019-2020 season when the Niners made it to the Super Bowl, he played his ass off that year. And, of course, he's going to be on that Amazon Prime Thursday night crew. So it would be cool for Richard Sherman to be interviewing Brock Purdy and Fred Warner, maybe Dre Greenlaw, or some big playmaker on our defense. I would love nothing more than the Niners winning by at least 2 touchdowns. Not saying this will happen, but I would love nothing more than to just eat turkey on the Lumen Field 50-yard line. Oh, that would be just such bitter revenge. But, hey, Seahawks, they're not a bad team this year. They're 6-4. If they didn't lose by 1 point to the Rams last week, this game would be a battle for first place in the NFC West. So, got to hand to the Seahawks. They're not a terrible team. They're not. I don't see them making the playoffs or anything, but they're not a terrible team. But the Niners are going to get the win on a short week just like last year. That's just plain and simple. But now, before I wrap up this video, I just want to talk about Brock Purdy a little bit, because the Niners, before winning these last 2 straight games, were on a 3-game losing streak. The game in Cleveland where they lost, that's when Purdy threw his first interception since January 1st. But the Niners would have won that game if it wasn't for Jake Moody missing that field goal. And the Vikings game was a different story. The Vikings game was a game that the Niners had no business winning. The Vikings absolutely outplayed them. And Purdy looked a little more rusty, but still didn't look terrible. Of course, still was completing passes and all that. And then in the Bengals game, that's when Purdy probably had his worst game as a Niner. And the Bengals got that win. But hey, and that's where he threw 2 interceptions in that game as well. So, of course, all the critics were like, oh, Purdy was just a system QB. That was just a fluke. What happened last season and all that. And some Niner fans were like, oh, Sam Darnold needs to start now. Like, just people need to appreciate greatness when it's right in front of you more. That's all I'm going to say. His pocket awareness, the decisions that he makes, it's better than, I think, any 49ers quarterback since Jeff Garcia. And that's just the truth. Now, in this last game against the Buccaneers, he had a perfect QB rating, and he is the first 49ers quarterback, let me phrase it this way. He's the only 49ers quarterback not named Steve Young or Joe Montana to have a perfect passer rating. But hey, anyway, that's all I got. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Danny G is out. Peace.